just need to commence, gents. Make a great plan, man. A real McCoy, Troy, our 3 cents for free.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural recording of Our 3 Cents. This is a kind of a spinoff, if you will, of Money Talks, a Henssler financial production that is aimed at talking to business owners, potential business owners, about their business in general, but more specifically about entry and exit strategies. Most folks that are going to listen and enjoy our show are going to do so because we have lots of insight working with those who invest in privately held businesses. More often than not, we talk to business owners, so the folks that are looking maybe to get out in the future. But also, we have lots of folks that are out there seeking those business opportunities. My name is Troy Harmon, and I'm joined today, as we will be in every instance, by Casey Smith and Nick Antonucci. Just to give you a little background on who we are, I am a CFA charter holder. Chartered Financial Analyst is what CFA stands for. I also am a Certified Valuation Analyst, so I have one of the several designations that the SBA requires in order for them to accept a business valuation on a privately held business. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. I just out of experience in the field, been a financial analyst for quite a few years now, almost 15.
You're also a recovering business owner, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I was a serial entrepreneur before I became a financial analyst, and started out when I was really too young and dumb to know what to do as a business owner, and I survived it. When I was about 21, I got out of the Air Force and started my own business, and that was repairing pneumatic and hydraulic tools, believe it or not. Turned that business into a distributorship for similar tools. Later on sold the business. Some would argue I gave it away. I would say that's probably pretty accurate. You live and you learn, and before you know it, you're an analyst trying to help others figure out just how to do that transaction. Later went into trucking, where I sold to some partners. So,
a serial entrepreneur, you weren't selling like
cereal. Yeah, no.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I can't help you out with your fruity Cocoa Puffs. But that's who I am. One of the few people you'll probably ever meet that's actually held a commercial driver's license and a CFA charter. That's got to put me in some really narrow company.
You don't run into
Do you have the CDL
CFAs
on your business card?
I do not. No.
Well, if you ever need to add more letters to look more educated, there's your move,
I could
Troy.
drive up in a tractor trailer, which I have done for about 700,000 miles, believe that or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Whole bunch of miles. Anyway, I'll leave the rest to you guys. Go ahead.
Well, I'm KC Smith, and that is the initials KC, not
That's
Casey,
right.
is often confused. But I am a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner Practitioner. I have to drop that last part in there for the CFP board.
I always call it a certificate.
Or certificate, either way.
Yeah. Oh, you can do either one.
Yeah, you've got some flexibility there.
All right.
So I'm kind of coming at this more from the financial planning side of things. In addition to that designation, I also hold a CEPA, which is a Certified Exit Planning Advisor. Nick and I are both in that distinguished group that helps business owners with planning for their exit and thinking about how they're going to step away from the business eventually when they decide to, either retire or sell their business or what have you. So coming at it more, like I said, from a financial planning angle is a little bit different than Troy and Nick, who are more on the financial analyst side. Because we see business owners all the time on the planning side who think about, when we're doing their financial plans, we'll just ask them for a value of the business and they'll give one to us, and we kind of input that into the program without much thought about, what does that mean after taxes? Are you going to get that as a lump sum? How is that going to translate when you actually do step away from the business? And oftentimes, as these guys will tell you doing the valuation, what an owner thinks the business is worth may be dramatically different than what the business can actually bring in terms of proceeds.
Wait a minute, Casey.
I know.
You're calling somebody's baby ugly?
I know.
Right here on our inaugural show, you're going to tell folks that their business is not what they thought.
Well, maybe.
He'll be scared to do it to their face, though.
Yeah, that's why I'm hiding behind this microphone.
That's right. You can't reach him.
That's right. But anyway, that's my background. I've been with Henssler for pretty much my whole professional career, about 14 years now, and been doing the financial planning thing for about 9 or 10 of those years. So definitely having some experience working with the financial planning side of things, and work closely with Nick and Troy on client portfolios, but also more recently in this venture of exit planning.
That's right. Well, I'll wrap it up with the intros here. As Troy and Casey said, my name is Nick Antonucci. I've been with the firm as well for about 10 years on the research side of things. So assisting, Troy in building our client equity portfolios, bond portfolios, certified valuation analyst, certified exit planning advisor as well. And I think what I'm looking forward to about this podcast, guys, is, you say exit planning advisor and people think automatically, oh, so you're going to help me sell my business. Well, there's plenty of young entrepreneurs out there, young businesses that need exit planning early. It's not necessarily about you being ready to transact your business right now in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years even. It's about laying the groundwork and having, the necessary procedures and overall understanding of your business and what adds value to it and what makes it, an easier exit, sale, whatever that your exit plan may be in the end, when that time does come. And it's beyond, it actually goes beyond that. So, Casey, you mentioned you're going to exit the business, you're going to sell it. What are your proceeds going to be? Well, beyond the financial aspect of it, what are you going to do with your life? Post exit.
Great point. Yeah. And that's a lot of times what business owners don't think about. They're so focused day to day just on running the business and trying to grow their revenue or grow their profit margins, whatever.
Which is all important stuff.
Extremely important. But at the end of the day, if somebody decides to make the decision to exit, they have to be ready for what it is that next step looks like. I mean, it's not dramatically different than somebody who's retiring from a normal job. The difference is you want to retire from a normal W-2 job. What do you have to give, like 2 weeks notice, maybe a month, and then you kind of ride off into the sunset, collect your pension if you have one, or your 401k, and roll that into an IRA, whatever. There's a lot more involved in trying to plan for your exit from a business that you operate, and especially if you want that business to continue and have the employees remain and things like that. I mean, if it's a going concern, then there's a lot of planning that goes into that.
And planning is key, and where this whole profession comes from, and the reason it exists is because what the data shows. So you can look back to a 2018 Georgia-specific survey of business owners. 47% of owners have done no planning at all.
None whatsoever.
76% have no formal advisory board or transition team for the business. And 64% are not familiar with all their exit options. That last one, the 64% not familiar with all their exit options, I think when I think about people exiting their business, what we deal with most frequently is business owners that are like, oh, here's what my business is worth. I'm going to sell it when I'm ready to retire. Well, it's not that easy. And is it actually worth what you think it's worth?
Yeah, well, privately held businesses are not the most liquid thing. I mean, we talk about assets all the time, and it's easy if you own a stock portfolio to go out and sell it all. You can do that in a day, any day. It just depends on whether the market's up or down and what kind of price you're going to get for it. And most people as an individual are not going to move the market when they sell their stocks.
Right.
Selling a business, number one, you got to find a prospective owner,
right? Which
is probably the most difficult portion, especially one that's going to have the financial capability to buy your business after you get over the hump that they have to be interested in the business.
And the interest and the ability. There's plenty of people out there who would love to be a business owner or love to buy your business, but do they actually have the means to do so? Do they have the access to capital?
Right.
Yeah, and how does that translate in terms of, where do the banking relationships come in and things like that? A lot of times it's a lot harder to get a loan to finance the purchase of a business, especially if you don't have any, tangible assets that can be used as collateral. So,
well, that's all bank wants, right? The bank wants to make sure that if something goes haywire, they can seize enough assets to pay off your indebtedness to them at any given point, right?
Right. Yep.
And quite often, what do you find in a business? There's intrinsic value in certain assets, but there might not be tangible value in those assets.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, if you're using a truck to deliver goods, the operations actually are the service.
Yep.
The truck itself is probably worth significantly less than your business might be valued.
Sure.
But the bank can't claim
Exactly.
your business as an asset. The truck, it can.
Right, exactly.
And I feel as though, society as a whole, we're much more service-based than we are manufacturing-based as you've been in the past. And so our experience a lot of times in valuing businesses is, especially if an individual is seeking a loan to finance the purchase of part of a company or an entire company, is if it's services-based and there's not a lot of assets underlying the business, it's much more difficult to secure the financing for that transaction.
Yeah. So businesses aren't very liquid. I think we've more or less covered that, and there's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
And then, you step into, who would you sell the business to? If it's a family business or your family is even remotely interested in it, number one, you've cleared potentially a hurdle. But do you just hand it off to the next generation and go to the house? You probably are going to want to be able to get paid for that business, even by the next generation. And how does that look?
Yeah. And I mean, how much of the business is based on you as the owner and your relationships and what you bring to the table as far as owning it? And when you step away, is the family or whoever is taking it over going to be able to operate that business? I mean, the statistics, which I don't have right in front of me, but in terms of transitioning from first to second generation, it's staggering in terms of the success rate being, very, very low. I think it's something like 30% of businesses succeed into the second generation and 5 to 7% into the third.
Yeah.
So if you have a family business that's been operating for more than 3 generations, then you are among the very select few that is able to do that successfully.
Well, Casey, since you already kicked it off and started calling people's baby ugly, let's talk about the second generation.
Yeah.
Remember the movie Tommy Boy?
Oh, yes.
Tommy was the second generation, right? He was taking over the brake parts business. And think about who he was. Was he fit to run the business? And I think most people would say, well, yeah, he was
By
funny.
the end of the movie, he was.
Yeah.
But there was no formal, transition education.
No, he had to learn on the job.
Yeah, but how often is that part of it? And
But hey,
if the founder's around,
this brings up the perfect point, Troy.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought up Tommy Boy, because this wasn't a planned transition, right? Which we have learned that most of the time, or a lot of the time, it isn't a planned transition. That's the ideal.
It's almost exactly
way
half
to do
of the
it.
time that businesses transition without, being following the ideal path that the owner would have had them transition.
Right.
If in fact they had slowed down the plan to begin with.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So the Tommy Boy scenario would fall under one of what we refer to as the 5 Ds. That's death, disability, divorce, disagreement, and distress. And most individuals
I'm glad you didn't say dismemberment, because I thought
that's the 6th one.
Well, I think that would be potentially
disability,
death or disability.
Yeah.
I mean,
depending. Not that it's funny, but
no. The sad thing is, quite often you don't get to plan.
Right. You don't get the choice of when you exit. It's to one of these. And
exactly. You might plan your exit and it gets kind of mucked up for some reason.
Or if you're not planning and you've done absolutely no planning, if you're in part of that contingent, what was it, 60-something% that have had no planning at all?
Right.
And then one of these events happens, that could be potentially the end of the business without realizing any of the value.
Right. And I think it's common for most individuals to be like, well, what would happen if I died? But most don't think beyond that. how is your buy-sell agreement for the business written as it pertains to
buy-sell agreements?
As it pertains, I don't mean to get that deep, but I'm just saying to consider with divorce. You don't ever consider that. Oh well, should I get divorced? Does half of my ownership in the company, does my ex-spouse have a claim to that? And then what does that do to the ownership structure?
They definitely have a financial claim to your assets.
Exactly.
Unless you have a prenuptial
disagreements with your fellow owners. Troy, we've experienced situations where individuals have been gifted ownership, and only a handful of months later, there's such a disagreement that one wants to buy out the other. And there's no formal plan for how the business should be valued, or it's in the buy-sell agreement that it should be valued in a method that doesn't make sense for the type of business that it is. Let's say it's valued on book value,
where
it's
most
purely services-based business. So as we said before, there's no assets, there's no book value of assets that's going to represent the true value of this company.
Just the amount that's left after everybody makes their distribution at the end of the the year. That makes perfect sense, does it not?
Exactly right.
Yeah, no.
And that's not much if you're not if you're like a lot of companies and you distribute the significant portion of profits.
And what we're really talking about here is one of the first steps that you want to take when you're engaging somebody or starting to think about planning for an exit. And it's not really necessary. We keep saying exit. The theme kind of the show is really exit planning is just business planning. I mean,
absolutely.
You're planning for the exit, what you want to have happen at the end of the day. But, it's similar to financial planning. It doesn't have to all be about retirement, but that's kind of the end game. But the steps that you take along the way to set yourself up for what that looks like is just living a good financially
and that good business
life.
Sense is what leads to a smooth and faster transition at a higher multiple or price tag when the time comes.
Yeah. And so one of the first steps.
And is that really the only complication there? Because I would argue that if you're handing your business off to the next generation, do you want to maximize value?
Yeah, maybe not. It depends on kind of what you
want to. Yeah.
Exactly.
What you want to do is maximize after-tax value, which definitely could at times conflict with the absolute highest valuation you could achieve in the business.
Sure. Yeah, and I think when we're talking about the 5 Ds, that's really just it's risk management. Identifying the risks within your organization and putting plans in place, or whether it's insurance policies to cope with some of this stuff. What are the things that you can do? Having a set of processes and procedures that's documented and written down. I mean, that something as simple as that is a huge risk management or risk mitigation tactic. And so all of these things that you can do as a business owner to kind of sidestep and mitigate some of these risks that come along the way is a huge part. And that's really kind of the first step in starting to think about what business planning looks like for you. And then, of course, you get into valuation and, how much is it worth? Because it's important to know that. Well, in the process of creating that understanding about valuation, you also go through a bit of a practice that lets you know how you could add value to the business. A good financial analyst that's going to walk you through the steps and why the decisions behind the scenes and the calculations were made the way they were is going to talk to you about ways that you might enhance the value of your business. Yep.
And that's one of the things that when Nick and I sit down with a business owner or a potential buyer of a business that we can discuss with them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think when owners a lot of times think about the value of their business, they're coming at it from a multiple angle. My was at the country club and playing golf with a guy, and he says that he got 8 times EBITDA for his business.
Yeah. Number one, what is EBITDA?
It's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Wow, look at KC show off. That's precisely what it is. It's kind of a cheap way to get to cash flow.
Right.
And that's what all investors want. They want a stream of future cash flows and what's it worth to me today.
Yep.
I mean, that, you can't really winnow down the calculation of value for any investment any better than that. But quite often what you lose in considering that is every business that's going to be sold at this multiple growing at the same rate? No.
Not
Is
at all.
every business that generates that level of EBITDA as profitable as the next?
It's like we could ask 100 questions right now to differentiate your business.
Right.
What's the cyclicality of it? Do you have customer concentration issues?
Yeah. How big is it?
Yeah. I mean, the questions can be seemingly endless, which all have a play into what your business is worth, what your multiple can be. It's not, you can't just, and we've deal with this all the time. You can't just slap a general multiple for a business on there and expect to get anywhere near that.
Yeah.
And tying that back into kind of the personal financial planning aspect of it, which again is kind of where I'm sitting at the table, coming at it from, a lot of times, even if you can get the multiple that you want or think that the business is worth, how does that translate to cash flow to you as the individual? Because most of the time you're not going to get just a lump sum payout of whatever the agreement
Precisely.
is, because to Nick's point earlier, it's all about not only interest but ability to pay for the business. And if you can't get financing, or financing is hard to come by through a traditional source like a bank, then a lot of times the owner has to kind of self-finance that.
Sure. That's very common.
Yeah. So continuing to kind of work in the business and earn out, your share of whatever the value that you end up getting for the sale, or an installment sale situation. So, and some of those things might be actually better for you because you can kind of take smaller bites of the apple in terms of the tax hit.
Right.
So sometimes maybe what sounds like a better deal to get I'm just throwing out a number, $10 million lump sum offer for your business. But maybe somebody else is giving you a smaller number, but it's going to be, bite-sized chunks, and you can manage the taxes better. It's not all valuations are equal, I guess is my point.
Yeah. And to me, what this brings to mind is we've touched on a handful of elements of exit planning and business, good business sense, as you say, KC, but it's a complicated process, right?
Sure.
So it's important to involve professionals with you. Us going through the CEPA curriculum, they kind of train you to be the quarterback because, no one person is qualified to tackle all of these elements of an exit plan.
No.
So it's important to have the professionals in place. We're talking tax strategy here.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking business valuation. We're talking financial planning. We're talking accounting. It goes on and on. Estate planning, legal, insurance. It's a very complex situation for you to deal with. So starting it early helps you to not be overwhelmed with all these different pieces that I need to approach and put together into one cohesive, plan. And, pay a professional, do it the right way, make sure that you have all your bases covered to do it in a way that benefits you to the greatest extent.
Absolutely.
Well, and honestly, I think that's probably why most business owners have not done the planning that they should do in order to position themselves for their eventual exit, because it's just overwhelming. And I mean, you've met business owners; they're
overwhelmed
the
to begin
people,
with, right?
Sure. I mean, it's all they can do to just eat, drink, sleep, breathe their business all day
tread
long.
And water.
And I think it's important too to point out, there's obviously costs associated with it, but implementing a good plan that strengthens your business, whether it be profitability or gross sales, you'll pay for all your planning.
It should.
So fast. It should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, let's say it's one more times that multiple we talked about, in the end of the transaction. That'll more than pay for the services you're having to cover right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If folks want to reach us, we should probably throw out a way that they can do that. And the best way is to call us. Number 770-429-9166. You can ask for Casey, Nick, or Troy. We're always happy to help. And some of the topics that we're planning to discuss in the future months and years to come, valuation. I mean, Casey, you've already touched on it. What's the multiple, Kenneth? The old REM song, What's the Frequency, Kenneth?
Yeah.
I think, that's something from the 90s, but it's still, the multiple's not everything. You need to understand what's behind it and maybe why your business is not easy enough to judge by a multiple for a market-based valuation. The all-knowing income approach to valuation, we'll talk about that at some point in the future. The benefits and pitfalls of running a valuation there. And quite often, I like that approach more often than some of the others, because it does speak more specifically to your growth and profitability. It is a calculation of future cash flows, but it also has a little bit of forecasting in it, which can lead to some issues. And then the asset-based valuation, when that makes sense. So we'll step through some of those in the future. Topics like how can debt add value to the business? People look at you like you're crazy, like you got two heads when you say, hey, you know what? Borrowing a little bit of money can add value to your business.
Yeah.
Right.
What?
That's counterintuitive for sure.
It really is. Yeah. But there is a topic out there. I'm not going to get into it, but whether or not you borrow or bring in a partner, that one ties back into that same topic, maybe maximizing value, the tug of war between paying the tax man and selling your business to a stranger,
and I think,
top valuation.
Something else to talk about when it comes to maximizing value is actually identifying the risks in your business and how to mitigate those, because that does maximize the value that you can get. Yeah. Someone who's looking to buy your business is going to try and poke holes in it to get the price down lower and lower. And if you're mitigating the risks that exist in your business and identifying them, it can help you, achieve that higher price.
That helps you on both levels, because the risk being, the 5 Ds kind of thing. If you can protect yourself against those, but also against, get you a higher multiple at the end of the day. If everything does go according to plan, then why not do that?
Yeah. One of the hot topics these days is environmental, social, and governance in large publicly traded businesses, but that actually might be a consideration for a small business owner too.
Sure.
Passing the ownership to the next generation is a topic we want to discuss in the future, as well as, what if my family doesn't want any part of my business, maybe how to tie into private equity who often buys small business. And in that case, size does matter. They often will not look at very tiny businesses if they can't be either tied into another company, folded in, if you will, with client lists and assets. So, you have to be mindful of just what the size of your small business is and whether or not that might be a good target for you.
What are the pros and cons of selling to or using any of these different strategies? Private equity being a good example. It's yes, you might command a higher multiple, but what are they going to want out of you as the owner? It's probably not something.
And if you're trying to look after your employees that have been with you for a long time and ensure that they maintain jobs for the foreseeable future, then maybe that's not the way to go. So we'll get into that.
Not only that,
sure.
I mean there are some behavioral aspects to being a human being and a business owner, and one of them is leaving a legacy. Mm-hmm. Part of your legacy in your own mind might be, hey, I've spent all my life building this business. I want it to continue. I want this to be, 3 generations from now that my kids can look at it and say, hey, remember great grandpa built X, mm-hmm. And that might be one of your goals in the future. And surely taking care of people who have helped you get there. Quite often, instead of selling to family, you might be grooming the next business owner that you can sell to. And guess what? It helps you because they then can help you get paid out of the business.
That's right.
And learn in the process for their generation when they start looking for someone to buy them out of the business.
Yeah.
So all of those topics on top of the fact with there's a topic I've gotten written down here. Would you like fries with that? What about buying a franchise? I mean, those all come into it as well. So not just exit, mostly exit, because we do run into so many business owners in our circles of business, but also what about the buy side? Yeah. So a lot of the financial planning will go in either direction. But there's you a good introduction as to what we're going to do with our 3 cents.
And if you guys have a topic that you'd like to hear us talk about or dive deeper into, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to give us a call. Shoot us an email, something that we can we can talk on the show about. We're open to doing interviews and things like that too that might come about as part of this. So it's really it's going to be an evolving thing, but we hope to do a lot more of these and really hope to provide some good value to our audience, business owners and other professional advisors as well.
There you go. And again, that number is 770-429-9166, or you can email us at drgene@henssler.com. That's spelled DRGENE at HENSSLER.com. So guys, sounds to me like a pretty complete thought. Let's make it a wrap.
Sounds good to me.
Be back soon.
That's right. Thanks for listening to Our 3 Cents.
The Dow hit a record high.
Holding steady.
The economy.
Oh, we got your back, Jack. Make a great plan, man. A real McCoy, Troy. Our 3 cents for free. The options to pick, Nick. You need to discuss much. You got the key, KC, an exit strategy.